All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Leadership Blend Live podcast with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my co-host,
Simone Cherie.
All right, we were here last Friday, right?
Yep.
I don't know why I feel like we were not here last Friday. It's like
It's been a long week for you.
Literally, like with the gas and all this other stuff and just everything that's going on. All right, so we have another special guest in the studio today. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself to you guys, and we're going to go from there.
I am Marcus Flowers, a Democratic Army veteran running for Congress in Georgia's Congressional District 14. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for coming. We
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
All right, Simone, so what's on the rundown?
So we're going to talk about just a couple of things, and then we really want to get into not only you and more about your background and why you're running, but also your district and kind of explain to people what the 14th Congressional District is like. Because I think that it only became very important to the national audience since our current incumbent was
You were nice about that. 'Cause I was going to say you were nice. 'Cause I was going to say something else. You were very nice.
The current incumbent, we'll put it like that.
It's
So
always been important to me.
well, it is important. It is important. It's important to everyone in Georgia as well. I just don't know if I've seen quite so many headlines about the 14th district.
Literally.
But
I had to look it up. I'm not even going to lie. 'Cause I was
including
like,
as of this morning. So, but before we get into that, so the gas shortage does persist, although there are promising signs. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. I think in fact, coming in earlier today, I was looking at some of the notes about the dark side and trying to understand what kind of ransomware.
Did you say the dark side?
That's what the ransomware is called, because the investigation by the FBI did confirm that. I think it only took about a couple of days of investigation before they were able to whittle down that apparently there's 5,500 miles of pipeline, critical fuel pipeline, that was the target of this attack, and that went all the way from Texas to New York, I think, maybe the east coast of New York. And I just vividly remember in my mind driving past all these gas stations and seeing the traffic just piling up and cars falling out of the street and wondering, okay, I'm going to have to cancel a lot of my plans coming up soon. But that's what
you got out of that?
Yes. And you were happy to cancel some of your plans. But what did you think of this? Did this impact? I know that you're all over probably the road right now because you're campaigning, but did you hear about this a lot from folks?
Oh, yes. As soon as it happened, that pipeline runs right through my backyard. So,
Oh, wow.
Saturday, Sunday, people were like, hey, did you hear about the, dark side hacking into the pipeline?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I've heard about it. Hopefully it won't affect us right now, but I was wrong. So it has kind of put a cramp in our style a little bit. Most of our gas stations are out of gas, so I was kind of looking there, making sure I had enough gas to get here and back home. Mm-hmm. So I'm good, hopefully.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
How
Fingers
about
crossed.
we don't have any gas jugs. With
I'm
gas
hoping I
in
wasn't
them
putting
to
water
get
in
you
my
home.
car.
Oh, man.
You can, but you have a bigger problem when this is all over with.
Much bigger problem.
The gas. So I know that my wife had to get premium because that was all that they had at the one station she was at. She was like, I'm just going to have to take it.
Really? Because that's the opposite. Everybody, like my brother has premium for his two cars, and he cannot find premium, so he had to put it in regular.
Oh, wow.
He was not happy about it. So I'm surprised that all y'all have is premium.
Hey, don't sleep on regular gas. It's more than it's chalked up to be. I use it all the time.
I do too.
hope
I'm
so.
not about to switch. I was actually glad. And I was like, this is perfect. This works well for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. They announced it. I feel like it was a propaganda thing. Or I don't know. Maybe it was the way they announced it. Because everybody, my brother's like, you need to get up and get gas right now. I'm like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. But luckily, there are literally 2 gas stations within walking miles of my house. Both of them had gas. And I had to wait for maybe like 2 minutes. But then I went on Covington Highway, and it was like you thought Armageddon happened. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, have we hit the rapture? What is happening right now? Like, you guys are acting like it's the rapture. Like,
I wish.
It's gas.
It's
saying
the toilet paper
I was going to
Exactly.
say another
Debacle
toilet
of
paper incident.
2019 or 2020 once again. So that's
Yeah. I know that my first thought was definitely that, man, I hope this is short. I hope this is quick. And I hope it's not another toilet paper incident. When I first started getting those texts, they came from the same people who always send me a little conspiracy types of texts, and so I didn't take it that seriously. Quite frankly, it took like a lot.
Why do you have
It took
conspiracist friends?
We can get into conspiracies in a little bit. That's relevant to today's
never a dumb one.
conversation.
Why do you
But
have-
I had to hear from a certain amount of people before I really moved on it, unfortunately. And it may have cost me, so I may have found some better gas. Let's talk a little bit first about the CDC updates and the guidance and stuff like that, because I think the numbers as of yesterday for vaccinations for COVID were that 59% of adults have had at least one vaccine, and then I think 45% are fully vaccinated. And I think the CDC released updates earlier in the week, I want to say it was Wednesday, that you no longer need a mask in some jurisdictions indoors if you are fully vaccinated. There are still some states that have their own, protocols, but 7 governors got rid of their mandates at least. since that update came out. Why are you shaking your head?
Because
is that not good news?
I mean, it is, but it isn't. I don't trust it. I'm like, okay, y'all were just saying that this vaccine is only to keep you from dying if you get it and from spreading it. So how are we at a space already where you can say, okay, well, you guys don't have to wear masks anymore? How are we already at that space? Like, this all happened like in the last 100 days. No, I'm not. I don't even feel like Biden had enough time to vet all this stuff to make sure all this stuff works appropriately.
You didn't trust the distribution plan.
Yeah, I'm glad he has one because we didn't previously have one. But how we go from in less than 100 days of this vaccine is just to keep you from dying and just to keep you from the spread to now you guys don't have to wear masks outside and inside. That timeline for me does not work.
Well, I'm going to trust the science here, and I'm happy for
Have you
one
seen
to
the science?
be with. You know,
Have you seen the
trust
science?
the scientists. I'm going to go with what Fauci's recommending and the CDC.
Yeah.
I, for one, am happy to get out of the mask.
Oh,
I was going to say,
by all means, but
I
was truly,
I don't want to take it off and then everything is just sitting in the air waiting for me to remove my mask. Like, that's what I'm saying. But
I think that's the incentive. I think that they want people to get the vaccine and they're incentivized.
No, they want to get these states back open and get people back to work and all this other stuff. That's what they really want.
Hey, that's what's making this possible today. Me being here in this studio, having the vaccine.
You tried it.
You
tried it.
I'm so ready to get back out and be with people again, and I know everybody.
Yes, but are you willing to risk your life to do it?
Well, they said the science is clear. That's what the CDC said. They said the science is clear. That if you are fully vaccinated, you can start doing those things. That's what they've said. And that was my immediate thought. And I know that obviously enough people would have to have it for it to be safe. But my first thought was, why do we still have to even do the masks? And I'm glad to see that we don't.
Look at the Yankees, guys. They
what? Wait,
eight
what?
of them, they tested positive. None of them. Well, one of them is only one showing symptoms. Most of them are asymptomatics. That's what the vaccine's supposed to be doing.
Supposed to be. I will wait for numbers. You all can go on out there and without now outside. Fine, I'm okay with outside, especially the wind's blowing and I know that nothing can just stand in my face. Fine, but inside, especially to start going back to concerts and all that other stuff, I'm not ready for that.
I don't know about concerts yet, even though.
Oh, they're already breaking out into venues.
I was going to say I'm definitely going to buy some tickets.
See?
I'm getting started.
See,
but the last concert I was. Eric Church 2020, so it's been a while. Oh, it's 2019 actually, so it's been a while. We're ready to get back. Yeah, I know you might not be the Eric Church type of guy, but don't. Eric Church he's awesome.
I have different sides of me. I don't really know his music, but that's not to say that I can't go check him out.
I guarantee you he'll win you over.
Ugh. The fact you said that makes me concerned, but okay.
Oh, come on.
That makes me concerned.
Okay.
Like I said, y'all can go without masks. I will wait for y'all to make sure that y'all are good. And it could be because it hit home for me. Like, I lost an aunt. My sister was in the hospital. So all that stuff, I'm just like, nah, that timeline doesn't work for me.
Cautiously optimistic.
Exactly. I'd want to get out of masks as well as everybody else, but at the same token, I'm not ready to risk my life on
Take your time. Everyone's at a different place. My comfort level may be different than yours. Whatever makes you comfortable.
Peer pressure.
Yeah.
All my friends
I'm
will be like,
I'm not gonna push you. No one should be pushing you to, take off the mask.
Yeah, but also
you sound like one of those school teachers. That's when you say about peer pressure. But nobody should make you do stuff that you don't want to do. That's
true.
Nice,
and
teacher.
Cobb did remove that. They've removed the mask mandate, at least Cobb County schools, and there was highly contested debates about those masks very recently. Georgia is discontinuing the federal unemployment benefits next month.
I do not.
They're going to opt out of that. I do know Oregon is not. But this is a state-by-state sort of a thing. There are a lot of organizations from fast food to retail to hospitality that are desperate to get people back to work.
Here is my problem with this. I've had this conversation for the last 4 days. Here is, as somebody who's worked in a restaurant half my life, here is my issue with this. That is not the problem. Go ahead and stop the unemployment. You can be surprised at who does not return to restaurant and retail. People have had an awakening and they understand, I don't have to put up with this. I'm not going to put up with this. I don't make enough to do this. That's what COVID did for the restaurant industry. And this delusion to believe that just because they're getting money is the reason they haven't returned to this. No, they haven't returned to it because they realize that life can be better without the toxic work environments, the low pay, and the foolishness they were having to put up with. I am disgusted by this.
But there are business owners saying that they're struggling to even pay that extra couple of $100s per. Like, they're struggling to pay that. So if they're struggling to pay that, then how could they change wages? Like Amazon, I'm sure, can increase wages. That was one of the announcements that came out this morning, is that they're going to increase the base salary at some of their new locations to $17 an hour instead of $15. Amazon can do that, but everybody can't do that. So if it's tough to subsidize, how are they going to be able to
This is crap.
change?
That is crap. because they're going to do what they always do. Every time a burger today did not cost the same thing a year ago. You're going to hit the menu board. So whether you do it now or whether you do it for inflation, you're going to do it. So that is a garbage argument. They just don't want to take home less of the profits. Me and my brother talk about this all the time because he works for a franchise, and he was saying that they take home, even after they came up off of some of the profit, they're still millionaires. You just don't want to come up off the profit. Well, either you're going to or you're going to go under, because that's what I feel is going to happen. But I'm waiting to see the outcome from this. Because they have it wrong. You need to be talking about a livable wage, which will bring us back to minimum wage, which you guys don't want to do. So go ahead and take away the unemployment. I'm willing to see how this plays out, because I know it's not going to play out the way they think it's going to. But what is your opinion?
And, you're probably onto something there. I talk to small business owners and restaurant. My favorite restaurant, as a matter of fact, they've stopped seating people inside because they don't have the staff. They're doing complete takeout menus, and it's my favorite place to go to. And I've been
mine
doing
are
the
shut
takeout.
down.
Yeah, so a lot of people are hurting. And look, anybody that works a 40-hour week or anything, they should be able to take home a livable wage. That's always been my opinion.
Okay, that's great.
Small business owners, and I'm talking small business. I'm not talking large federal contractors who can afford to pay the $15 minimum wage. I think, and I've talked about this before, there needs to be some incremental steps in that to get small businesses to where they need to be, and pay people a livable wage.
Which I'm not saying it has to be 15, but there are fast food places paying $7.25 and $8. Like, we really doing this? And you expect somebody to come back after they've had almost a year to really process, and in that year they've had the opportunity to, $600 a week is a lot, but it's still not a lot for if you have a kids, 4 or 5 kids.
I'm not sure that's what's keeping people out of the workforce.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
right
I'm like,
now.
that's
And I think,
nuts.
like I said, I think it is a situation where two things can be true at once. I think it's a little bit of what you're saying, and maybe a small percentage of what they're saying. Oh, people are making all this money on
Yeah, I'm
unemployment.
just like, you're talking about
I when I came back to the States in 2014 from Afghanistan, there was a little period there, about 6 months, where I didn't have a job. I collected unemployment. Was it enough to pay my mortgage? No. So, I was highly motivated to get back to work, as I'm sure most people are. But as you say, especially in the hospitality and food and beverages, people are worried. People are scared, kind of like you with the whole, am I going to get sick?
It's a real possibility.
It is a real possibility.
I'm going to die or risk my life for $7 or $8. Like, I did it during the pandemic, and the building was closed. Now it's open again. I'm on the front lines again, and this COVID is not gone. I don't know why they feel like it's gone. It's not gone. But
I think
I'm not sure how much that has to do with the wage, though. People are scared,
but they're incentivizing them, right? Which I think this is a slightly like a silver lining that I think is I can agree to, is that Chipotle and Amazon and McDonald's and all the other places that are raising their wages are doing so because they do want people to come back to work. And again, those are huge chains, so they can afford to do that.
They don't want. They need.
They need. But that's good. If they need you there and they can pay you more to be there, then isn't that a win-win for everybody? No, it's not a win-win for everybody.
I guess it just shows you could have done it earlier. You just chose not to because nobody was pressuring you to do it.
No, the minimum wage hasn't changed.
Well, there will be no
10
reparations
years.
for former low incomes. That's just not going to happen.
Well,
if they raise the wage, it's not like you get back pay because you could have paid this the whole time.
I know,
that they're not.
But the point is, why do we have to pressure you to take care of your employees when you knew you could have? That's the issue for me. It's like, and I get it, big business, we have all these things that we're concerned about, but your employees should be first, because what you've learned is if they're not flipping those burgers, you're going to have to come flip them burgers, and you don't want to do that.
I do hope that this has created some cultural respect for the fast food work. I know you're very passionate about the fast food work.
Look, my first job was McDonald's, and I've spent a good fraction of my life getting through college, waiting tables. I actually enjoy. I don't have a problem waiting tables. It's actually kind of fun, because the people you meet, I don't do like lower tier restaurants, the Applebee's and the Chili's and stuff.
Hey, what's wrong with
I was
those?
going to say, hold on.
It's about price.
Servers, those are the exact professions that are going to suffer if they create some sort of a mandated minimum wage like they're doing in New York across the board for that industry and make everybody make $15 an hour instead of working for tips, which is how I was able to keep a roof over.
Yeah, no, I'm not in favor of that, because that's what really kept me waiting tables, is the fact that my income is based solely on me. You get the customers in, I'll make my money.
Exactly.
So I'm not, when we talk about servers.
That's the downside of this whole living wage thing, is that it will erase all of the incentives to actually show up and work hard and to make more money than just $15 an hour before tax.
Well, I guess
before tax.
My disgust with this argument is some of the sides' argument in this thing. Like this argument that these jobs are not designed for adults. What? Are you serious right now? And then this ideology that, they should just step their skill set up. I'm sorry, not everybody wants to amass a whole truckload of student loan debt, which half of us, I have 4 degrees, half of us wish we didn't even get. Like, that is not an answer to this. Yeah. I hate when they try to make these things so cut and dry. And you know I'm not a gray person. I don't believe in gray a lot. But this is not black and white. Like, this is a serious conversation that everybody from all sides needs to sit down and get into. This livable wage. What is a livable wage? What does it look like? Because what it looks like this year...
It depends on where you are,
That's
where you live.
True.
I mean, where I live in rural Georgia, a livable wage could be $7, $8, $9, $10, $11 an hour. $15 an hour, great.
I believe that. I believe that. But in these states, there's about 10 states, including like North Dakota and Montana and one other, where the unemployment benefits every week have averaged more than the average weekly wage. I think some of those states are like 110% of whatever the weekly wage is. Now, California, that's not the case at all. No. But some states are like 80%, 90% of whatever the weekly wage was. And quite frankly, I do know, anecdotally, that those people are not eager to go back to work for that extra 5 and 10%. They're really not rushing to get back to work for it. So
once again, two things can be true at once.
Yeah,
this is
true.
This is true. So my situation in rural Georgia is not the same as San Francisco or New York or Atlanta.
Or Atlanta.
So that's one of those things that we really need to sit down and have a conversation about.
So
it ends in September. Most of it ends in September. Okay, so these people who have worked like dogs half their life got a year and a half of being able to look. You know how a restaurant is.
I just don't like the analogy.
Especially I worked in a restaurant in college at Auburn as well. Shoney's. Awesome. That was my first job in college.
So. See? I'm just saying.
And it's a hustle.
When you have kids.
Did I make $15 an hour? I'm not sure I was that great of a waiter.
I was going to say, I made more. But women do tend to do better. But that's a whole other situation.
No.
As servers, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I promise you, every place that I've waited tables, I've outshone everyone.
Oh, well, good for
I
you.
believe in money. And I know that my personality brings in money, which is probably why I wouldn't go back to serving. Because with a mask on trying to wait tables, you can't see my smile.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you
I'm
can't
kind of a big guy. They looked at me like, just give me my food and get out of here.
I do believe that. There's certainly some reverse discrimination going on. But so I want to ask you more about your district now because we talked about it a little bit. I don't know that everyone understands. So we're talking about that Chattahoochee area of Georgia, right? Like Northwest Georgia. What are we?
Northwest Georgia, come on down to where I live in Bremen, Georgia, right? Butted up against the Alabama line. It's a big district. It goes all the way from I-20 up to the Tennessee border. So Lookout Mountain, that area.
And we are talking about
Rome, Dalton.
Mm-hmm. Is that area?
Calhoun.
Exactly. Calhoun, a little bit of it,
Okay. So the census just came out. Georgia's now, I think we've got 10.7 or so million people, and your district has, I think, under a million though. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly, it looks like mostly suburban.
700.
Yeah, 700 some odd thousand. Is it mostly rural? Is it somewhat rural?
Mostly rural.
Mostly rural. And the statistics that I was finding, I don't know if these are recent or not, are about 85% white/Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon. Yep. And 9% African American or Negro American. Okay.
Latino as well, yeah. So
some Latino, okay. That's good. Yep. I didn't realize that. Georgia's actually has a very small Latino population, but you've got 12% or so.
There's a good Latino population in our district, yes.
That's awesome. So how does a district like that's got an urban population, has a decent median income, how do they elect Marjorie Taylor Greene? Where does that come from? It doesn't sound like...
Well, Majorie Taylor Greene, and listen, we're not trying to embarrass anybody here.
Well, we couldn't do that anymore if we tried.
Okay, literally.
She was selling something that politicians have sold before. Hey, I'm going to go in and shake things up, and I'm going to get things done. People are tired of stagnant government. I know I was. I was tired of the bipartisanship. Work together, get things done. She was promising that. However, that's not what she gave us. And if people had looked a little bit more into some things that she had said, the discouraging remarks that she had made about Black and Latino people before she got elected, they would have, she wouldn't have been elected.
Yeah.
However, that being said, the Democrat dropped out of the race months before the election. And
during her cycle?
Yes, during the general. The Democrat dropped out. I guess a lot of people don't know that. His name was Kevin Van Ostel. I was trying to help him get elected in the limited capacity I could do as a government official and not violate the Hatch Act. He dropped out. due to some death threats and personal issues. You know, you just understand it. You know, no one faults him for that. He wasn't ready for what it became. I get it. And talking to him, you know, I understood that as well. But unfortunately, that let her run unopposed. So getting in, and I've been talking to people for a while, all summer, in fact. We're not happy with her. A lot of people aren't happy with her. They aren't happy with the antics. They aren't happy with the rhetoric. They wanted her to go in and do something. She's not doing that, except she is promoting her brand with the antics, you know, but she belongs no place near governance. Full stop.
Do you think her argument against that would be that it wasn't her fault, that she was removed, she was essentially silenced, and she was, you know, prohibited from being able to be effective?
You know, her beliefs are so radical that even her own Republican colleagues don't trust her. So that should tell you everything you need to know about her. And that's one of our larger battles. We're pushing back on misinformation, disinformation, and trying to get back to a place of decency and civility. We have to get back there. We have to get back to a place of compromise. You know, I've worked all over the world, you know, been to 46 different countries, worked with our allies from the UK, Ireland, France, Germany, Italy, you know, Iraq, Afghanistan, the Balkans, Kosovo, our Macedonian allies. I know I can work with anybody because I've worked with everybody. Majorie Taylor Greene is propagating the big lie. She rode on Trump's coattails, you know, into fame. She got a little power, abused it, and she got shut down. Full stop. She's not doing anything for the district. She's not pushing forward any agendas that people want to see. We want jobs in our district. We want small business to come back. We want infrastructure. We want kids back in school. She's not doing any of that. Rural health care, you know, something very personal to me, veterans issues. I'm a disabled veteran, suffered a traumatic brain injury. That's of paramount importance to me, taking care of our veterans.
That's good to hear.
You know, she's not doing anything
Right.
to help our veterans. In Georgia, we've got, what, 12 military bases here? A
yeah.
huge veteran community.
3 blocks.
What's she doing? What is she, yeah, exactly. What is she doing to help them?
Yeah, I actually had
That's why I'm running.
Floyd Knight from Vetlanta on the TV show last season. So yeah, the
Explaining
veteran community.
Yeah, the breakdown in the healthcare and delivery
Yeah, well, I
services.
think he was talking about like what they do and stuff of that magnitude and how big their network is with veterans. So
But
yeah,
yeah,
that's a big.
Can you share
people-
more about your background too? Like, tell people more about your service and stuff like that. I mean, I think
Yeah,
people
we like
can go to
jumping
you.
out
They
of
can go to your
planes and
they can go to your
stuff, like-
website, but like,
Well, a little bit about me. Born in Troy, Alabama. Birthplace of John Lewis, an icon. I've, you know, followed John my entire life. At 11 years old, I moved to Talladega, which is right next door to the district, in a children's home there. At 18, joined the Army. I was in the Army Reserves. While I was going to school, Southern Union, and living in Auburn. Year and a half into it, I decided, okay, I want to go active duty. Unit let me go. Ended up at an intelligence listening post in Germany, doing intelligence and electronics warfare. My job is logistics and compliance, so I was supporting, i.e., the war fighter.
What's with the air quotes? What is the air quote?
You know, this was back before our nation was in war. So, but
Okay.
our guys did their wartime mission every day.
Okay.
So, you know, in that field, got out of the Army in 2001, January. I did inactive reserves for the next couple of years, so
Okay.
technically I was still in. And still, I took over the Intelligence and Electronics Warfare Regional Support Center as their logistics manager for a contractor there in Germany, supporting, once again, men and women in uniform. So I was on Ramstein Air Base when 9/11 happened, watching our air assets get off the ground
gonna
in a
ask
hurry. And that shook me to my core.
I'm about to say, so you've seen crisis management.
Subsequently,
firsthand.
exactly. Subsequently, I spent the next decade in war zones, from, you know, being in the Balkans on peacekeeping missions to 2003, going to Iraq, helping set everything up there, doing life support missions for, you know, our soldiers and sailors, airmen, and Marines. Moved into governance contracts where we were helping the, you know, local governance in Iraq, you know, getting those people trained up to lead and govern their people. And positive way. Left Iraq and went to Afghanistan, where I was a subject matter expert in logistics and compliance. Also worked on foreign military sales, helping the Afghan National Army, Afghan National Police. I did that for several years, mentor them. And, you know, when the drawdown happened in 2013, 2014, you know, I was one of those managers that they were like, well, you know, we don't need so many people anymore. We're going to let you go. That's when I experienced unemployment for the first time.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Which was a joke until this debacle.
you know, a few $100s a week, it helped. And I appreciated it.
Right.
Like I said, but it didn't cover my mortgage. But then I went right back into serving the government as a Department of Defense government official doing compliance.
Wow.
They need you in Atlanta. You need to move. They need you in Atlanta.
Well, you know, I used to live close to Atlanta in Fayetteville for a couple of years. I bought a house there, and it's Atlanta-ish.
How about that?
Atlanta.
It's like Atlanta
Metro.
adjacent.
Atlanta
adjacent.
Yeah.
I'm a small town boy. I wanted to get back to that. You know,
I get
living
that.
in, you know, but I came back home. You know, and that's me in a nutshell. You know. January
so thank you for your
6th
service.
happened.
I was going to say I'd love to know. I talked to every veteran I know in my family and outside of my family just to kind of get their take on January 6th, and I'd love to hear where you were, what you thought.
Let me take you back a little bit. How I got into politics. May 25th last year.
Okay.
George Floyd's murder. I watched that in horror. You know, as I'm watching this, my wife showed me the video on that day, and I'm watching. She's just watch this. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, why does he have his knee on his neck? And the minutes start rolling by, and I'm thinking in my mind, wait a minute, this guy's not getting oxygen to his brain. A minute rolls by. He needs to get off of his. And she didn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
I'm just watching this. I'm watching in horror as 1 minute ticks off, 2 minutes ticks off, 3 minutes ticks off. This guy's going to die.
Yep.
8 minutes, 46 seconds, you know, which was updated to 9 minutes and 26 seconds. I watched a man murder another man,
Literally.
a police
middle of the
officer.
street.
And I come from a
Literally.
family of law enforcement officials. Granddaddy was a sheriff in a rough time in our history. So, you know, 50s, 60s, and 70s.
I would say that,
you know.
yeah.
So, but that's what it started for me.
Okay.
You know, I'd always considered myself nonpartisan. I, you know, government guy, coming up in the military. We didn't participate in politics.
This is true.
Well, you were doing
Yeah.
the work.
Just doing the work, keeping my head down, doing the
Yeah.
work. You know, and I served whoever the commander-in-chief was at the time. Worked under several presidents. So I decided maybe I'll get into activism. Maybe I'll start speaking out. Got on Twitter for the first time after John Lewis and C.T. Vivian died. I wanted to start talking to people and hearing what they had to say and sharing some of my thoughts, which is something I never did before. I watched the protests and riots in the summer, and I said, people are in a bad place right now.
Oh, yeah.
How can I help? You know, maybe just listen to people now and talk to them. Fast forward to January 6th. I'm still a government official at the time. I watch that in horror. I see a Confederate battle flag paraded through the Capitol Rotunda. I see police officers being beaten with American flags and sprayed with pepper spray and bear spray and whatever else. You know, and I see police officers assaulted and called the N-word. You know, you're watching this, and I'm watching it in horror. And I said, you know, throw in everything else that was going on with Majorie Taylor Greene rising to power and watching her in front of the Proud Boys days before and talking about January 6th and how we should come and take back our country. That was enough for me. That's when it became mission critical. And I said, the very next day, January 7th, I called my supervisor and said, I am resigning my position as a government official, and I'm running for Congress. He wasn't surprised in the least.
Really?
Not at all. He said, I know you. You wouldn't be able to sleep otherwise after we talked about it. He says, do what you have to do. And now I could have just sat back and kept my mouth closed and rode off into the sunset and retired from the
Pretty
government
much,
in
yeah,
about 10
pretty much.
years and you know, called it a day. But how would I look at myself in the mirror had I done that?
So let me ask you a question, because you clearly you have a history that proves a lot of duty and a lot of getting things done. And I have a question that I'm sure is not going to be the last time you're asked. If you have actually served before, and you've been active duty Army, and if you've actually worked in government and done all of the work of doing all of the things that everybody else is just kind of chatting about on TV news, it could be a frustrating thing to be a doer and then to have to run for office, where there is so much theater, it is so much circus, that are so many headlines and caricature, caricatures. Like even during a race, at 4 years from now, it's like people who don't even have an appetite to fundraise. And usually great public servants, in my experience, just working as a campaign operator, usually the best public servants are not enthusiastic campaigners. They don't like doing it. They don't like asking for money. They don't like having to be relevant all the time. They really do just want to do the work. And usually the reverse is true of folks who are great campaigners. Is that they're so don't you think that you'd be bumping your head up against the wall a couple times a day as somebody who just really knows how to do work and wants to do the work if you have to enter this theater?
But you said it yourself. Keeping your head down and doing the work is all I've done my entire career. That's what I'll bring to Congress. I'm not going to Congress, or I don't want to go to Congress to further my brand or become famous or become popular. There are leaders in Congress now who've kept their head down that you've never heard of, but they're keeping their head down and doing the work.
There's hundreds. I mean, I always talk about the same 20.
And that's exactly.
Somebody has to entertain.
And that's who I want to be. That's a servant leader. I've served my entire career. It's about service. It's about getting the work done. It's about helping people, serving people. My job, save taxpayer dollars. At the end of the day, that's what I've always done. That's what I want to do in Congress and help people. I want to bring equality. I want to bring some light to this whole racial issue. I think we need to take a serious look at our history, our shared history, and talk about it. Talk about it honestly and truthfully. Our history has been deliberately and purposefully hidden from us. The misinformation, disinformation. Remember, I said that's something I'm going to be pushing back against hard. We need to get to a point in America where we can speak truth and we all understand truth and facts matter. No more big lies.
No, because my whole, before you got here, I was like, my whole notion is Earth is ghetto, and I'm tired of explaining to people why. I mean, as another black man, I'm glad he said it. I'm like, the reality is, I'm tired of having conversations trying to explain to people who don't look like me why my life matters. Why do we have to sit on pins and needles when the trial was going on because we were afraid he would be innocent? We watched you kill this man. And the fact that we had to sit there and think that you would be innocent because that's what we've seen so far is not only ludicrous, it's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I think, that whole narrative about Black Lives Matter, if other people will just understand that us saying Black Lives Matter is an affirmation. We're affirming that to ourselves. It doesn't mean that your life doesn't matter. As soon as we can get to the point where we all understand that Black lives matter, white lives matter, Asian American lives matter, cops' lives matter, and they all matter equally, America wins. America wins, and it's just that simple.
So I guess that's my question, because the population, the demographic that you were saying, there's not...
You need that
compared
white
to other
vote?
From other areas in Georgia, there's a bigger African American and minority population. This one's not that big. So what do they need in your district, in the district you're running for? What do they need?
Here's one of the things that I want people to understand about the people in Northwest Georgia. Most of the people in Northwest Georgia. And of course, we've got some people that, like everywhere, that you're not going to get through to. But here's what I want you to understand about them. The people there are kind, generous, caring people. I always say that the people there will hold the door open for you, even if you're 30 or 40 feet away in a pandemic. These are the people that wave at you, don't know you, but just wave at you in the car while you're driving, and you wave back. I had to get used to that again after being away from the South for so long.
Yeah, no, I hear that.
It's kind of funny, but look, that's who the people are. But no one in America believes that right now. How could we expect them to believe that with the representative that we sent to Washington, D.C.? Because she is everything that we're not. She is everything that we're not. But we're going to change that.
Yeah.
We're going to change that. These are my people. Like I said, I'm from here. I grew up in rural Alabama, lower Alabama at first, Troy, which is also rural L.A. That's what we used to call it. But And I grew up in that area. I have a long history with it.
Mm-hmm.
I know the people; they're good.
Yeah, and I was going to say I've lived in rural Georgia, not northwest, southeast.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that way, and it is that feel. People are decent people, and people don't just brush past you as though you're not there, as though you're in the way. That's just not the culture.
It's the disinformation that you
right.
spoke about the loud minority.
Mm-hmm, very loud.
Yeah,
So let me ask a couple questions more about your platform, and I want to do it in a way of kind of like just positioning because. There was a statement given by a county Republican Party chair who just usually you hear about people's platforms and sound bites. So I'll provide like the kind of descriptor, and then I want you to kind of break it down and explain kind of where you are, where you stand. So when somebody asks you if you're a patriot, and you I think identify that way, what does that mean? What does the patriot mean?
A patriot simply means someone who loves their country and who's willing to fight for what's right.
Okay.
We got to take that patriot word back. That's one of the things that I'm pushing up against because patriotism is being skewed a little bit. You don't need to have a red hat to be a patriot. You don't. I've watched over the last 4 years how this very small minority of white supremacists, let's just be clear about it, have stolen the word patriot and twisted it to mean something else.
Do you think kneeling is unpatriotic?
My wife asked me about that when Colin Kaepernick knelt down. I said, look, personally, that's not what I would have done. Coming from the military, respecting the flag the way I do, it's not what I would have done. But I explained it to her this way. I said, I fought for this country and was willing to die for this country so that he could do that. So that he could dissent. That's his right, freedom of speech. It works both ways.
That's well said. That's well said. Would you call yourself pro-life? And if so, or if not, what
I
does that
am
mean?
pro-choice.
Okay.
And while I don't want to see abortions, and I feel personally a certain way about abortion, I don't think the government has any place in people's bedrooms.
Okay.
And I also don't believe in government-mandated pregnancy. If someone can explain to me what that looks like,
right?
Maybe I'll change my opinion on that, but I don't believe that that's something that you can do. And it's really, it's really about women's health at the end of the day. That's how I see it.
Okay. What about pro-gun?
I'm pro-Second Amendment.
Okay.
I'm pro all amendments.
Okay.
They're amendments.
Do you think there should be any changes?
Oh, come on. We definitely need common sense gun reform. Violent history checks. We shouldn't be putting weapons in the hands of people with mental illnesses, people on the terror watch list, domestic abusers. There are some common sense gun reforms that everybody agrees on. We need to, we need to stop using that as
Certainly
political football.
People, yeah.
97% of the country agrees that there needs to be some type of reform. I mean, how many mass shootings has there already been this year? I've lost count. Somewhere above 150, I know.
It's become almost normal.
And that shouldn't be the norm. I've been in war zones. I've seen war up close and personal. That's not what we should be experiencing here in America, in my opinion.
I hear you. So Majorie Taylor Greene made headlines a while ago because she had a sort of no transgender sign outside of her office, and I guess and right across from another representative
Rep. Newman. Yep.
Right, and we talked a little bit about the trans population in the military a couple of years ago when the ban was first issued, and we haven't talked recently about this, but Georgia, I guess, has the 4th highest transgender population in the country. So I'd love to know what your views are on gender, on trans rights.
Trans rights are human
in and outside
rights,
of
right? That's the way I see
well,
it. Full stop.
It depends on who you ask.
Full stop. I consider myself an ally. I have an LGBTQ daughter. I'm the uncle of an LGBTQ nieces and nephew. I'm an ally. Full stop. Nothing else to be said about it. Trans rights, LGBTQ rights are human rights. Let's stop demonizing one another. That's it.
Okay, and my last one is about socialism. So, because the slogan, I believe that that got the incumbent into office was Save America, Stop Socialism. And socialism is, it continues to have the same power that it had 60 years ago, I think, or 50 years ago in terms of being a campaign slogan. And it's so shocking to me as increasingly things are just as so much as subsidized.
It's disinformation. That's what it is. There are media outlets and politicians who are trying to radicalize people in our government, and or not people in our government, a certain group of people. We got to push back on that. Like I said before, we have to get back to a place of truth. I mean, you look at the whole McCarthy thing. Let's have some decency back. We're pushing back on that. We know where it's coming from. It's coming from the far right. They use words like socialism and communism, and we got to stop socialism. Well, just because you want to help people with health care or unemployment benefits doesn't mean you're being a socialist. So we have to, we got to learn to love each other and talk to each other with decency. The way we see people like Majorie Taylor Greene behaving in Congress, nobody behaves that way in regular life. We don't. I mean, I wrote a tweet about it yesterday. If I behaved that way at work, I'd have been fired.
Exactly.
Or worse.
Exactly.
Anybody would have been fired.
Yeah, career destroyed.
That's it. So
yeah, it's we talk about this all the time, and I still feel this way. I don't want government to be entertaining. I don't think it should be reality television. I don't think it's
political
just,
theater. It shouldn't be.
It absolutely shouldn't be, because there are real problems. Yeah. So, did you have anything else you want to ask before?
All right. So let's get very specific. So, what would be your top 3 issues for the district that you're running for? What would be the top 3 issues
for my district? We're gonna say jobs, small businesses. I'll rank those together. That's 1 for me. Rural health care. Rural broadband, so infrastructure. That's all part of infrastructure. And for me, it's veterans issues, but that's not so much for the district. So jobs, healthcare, infrastructure. Those are the big things that are going to help people in my district. It's going to get jobs. Education is also. I don't have just 3. We have so many topics.
I know, but people
it's
don't
hard
remember a lot of things. That's why I say the top 3. People
all of the big things
like
that are out there, big ticket items that Congress is disagreeing on right now, that they shouldn't be disagreeing on, things that we should all be able to agree on, infrastructure, jobs.
So when you say jobs, do you think Georgia's doing a good job there? Because we always call ourselves the #1 place to do business, the #1 state to do business.
It depends on where in Georgia, though.
Okay.
It's, so we have jobs in the district, but I want to, it used to be a manufacturing textile powerhouse. We need to get some of that stuff back. We're losing some of those. Infrastructure, yeah, we need to get it done.
So that means that's a combined conversation with vocational learning.
Yeah, that's one of the things I always say. Bring the trades back to school. Bring them back. I always wanted to see those. My dad was an auto body mechanic teacher in school, so that's
I wasn't. He
26 years.
Understands.
He understands completely. But I want to see that kind of thing comes back.
So I guess that's the question. But we say that. But how do we do that? Like, how would you do that?
Well, that's a good question. I'd like to sit down and talk with other members of Congress and see what's working in other places, take a serious look at it, and how do we get trades back into school, vocations, 2-year, some of the things that Senator Warren's talking about with the 2-year education. I don't know about free trade school, but I'm not quite there yet, but we need to give people options other than a 4-year college. I mean, there's only 16% of the people in my district have a college degree. So we need to definitely look at other ways of getting people trained and educated other than college. I think a 4-year degree, I think.
So, okay, my other question, because this has come up a lot with COVID, your second point about broadband, bringing it into rural areas. Like, what's your thoughts on how would we get that done? Outside of having conversations with Comcast and stuff about, hey, you guys should be here. You guys should be here.
No, they're already, like Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, they're already defense or government contractors. That should be a part of the infrastructure bill, I think, getting those guys out and wiring us all up so that kids in disadvantaged areas can have access to broadband and take online courses and things like that. So,
but a big part of that, right, is that like there's pushback on behalf of usually at the state level. I want to say, just in terms of it's an investment.
It is an investment.
It's a necessary investment, but it's an investment. And we keep trying to have conversations about improving all of these different areas of quality of life, whether it's the expansion of Medicaid or rural broadband. But if we can't ever increase a single tax above 6% for any amount of time, I don't know how money, it's not going to fall from the sky. The money's not going to fall from the sky.
Yeah, there's how to pay for it. That's always the big issue. And, you used to think of when you thought of what Republicans really stood for, they were always hawkish on no more new taxes. But the Trump tax cut is going to end up hurting a lot of people in a very short amount of time that we didn't see. So I think we need to look at closing some of the loopholes, find some of the money there. There are ways to find it without piling on to the middle class. I think that's my opinion.
I mean, I definitely think it can be moved around, but it's going to cost money.
It's going to cost money no matter what. I mean, the New Deal cost a lot of money. And it's a different time now, but it was a bold investment and it worked. And a lot of those companies that are seeing these billion and trillion dollar profits benefited from our infrastructure. So we need to make that investment back into our infrastructure, in a 21st century solution to the problems that we have now. That's the way I see it.
Not to go backwards too far, but I want to talk about public safety because that's an issue that, it's an important issue, but also since COVID, there's been a spike in crime at least at the county level for a lot of the major Atlanta metro counties, and I'm sure nationally it's similar. I don't think Georgia is the exception there. How do you feel about public safety in terms of how we go about it, for one, right? So how we go about law enforcement, how well we do train our officers, to what extent maybe we do need outside functions there. But even though in your role you'd be voting on mostly federal legislation and they're talking about qualified immunity and a few other things, in your ideal world, what would public safety, how would it change from what it is right now?
Well, I come from a world where we have civilian oversight coming from the military. I think it may be something we should look at, having more civilian oversight of police forces. Definitely more training. I don't think we need to be militarizing our police to the extent that they are militarized. I don't see so much of that in my district, but I watch what's going on in cities, and it's all the surplus equipment that they get. It looked like they're riding down the streets of Baghdad the way we used to ride down, and up armored vehicles. I'm like, it's a bit overkill, guys. More civilian oversight, maybe some more implicit bias training would help. Continuous education is what we got in the military as a defense contractor and in the government. I think we definitely need more of that in our police forces. And mind you, I'm all for law enforcement. I come from a family of law enforcement officials. And qualified immunity, we might need to take a look at that.
Okay.
If it's not holding an officer responsible, then maybe we should look at the departments. Maybe that way we'll be more careful with who we're hiring. I think a police force should look like the community that they're policing. Full stop. I mean, I think that's a common sense thing.
So one of the things I'd ask, and we talk about this as advocates quite a bit, is just the number of laws there are in general, right? So like there's just the number of interactions that police have with people increases the possibility that some of those interactions will be negative or end badly.
Yeah.
And we do enforce a lot of laws. We have dozens of thousands of laws in every single state, let alone, at the county level or the municipal level, I should say. So would you support just less government? And in my mind, this is what limited government meant. When I became a conservative years ago, that's what it sounded like to me. So would you support things like legalization?
I think we definitely need to look at decriminalizing marijuana for personal use and things of that nature. And there's certainly other places that we definitely need to, stop criminalizing that are hurting certain communities, I think. So yes, legalizing marijuana would help.
Okay.
Having come up in Germany, you didn't see a lot of traffic stops out on the highway because they had cameras everywhere. If you were speeding, you got flashed. Maybe we need to look at something like that for the states as well. Give police officers less reasons to pull people over. That whole stop and frisk thing, or stop and whatever it was called. Yeah, that was an unmitigated disaster, and we know what it led to. So yeah, I definitely think that we need to take a look at that.
All right. So in our last couple of minutes, why should people vote for you, and how do people get in touch with you?
Well, go to marcusforgeorgia.com and take a look at our campaign. And if you feel so inclined, donate, please, because we're going to need a lot of help. I'm under no illusions that this is going to be an uphill battle, and I can't take this hill alone, so I'm going to need help. But once again, like I said before, I will be a servant leader. You know, I will compromise. I will talk to people because I've talked with everybody and worked with everybody. So I can reach across the aisle, you know. Now, whether or not that works all the time remains to be seen. But you always have to extend that olive branch and extend a hand of friendship. But I will be a servant leader. I will keep my head down, do the work. I'm not wanting to go to Congress to increase my brand like Majorie Taylor Greene does. There will be no more antics. That's the kind of leader I will be. Serving the people. Full stop. That's Marcus Flowers. That's who I've always been.
All right. Simone, final thoughts?
No, I appreciate what you've had to say. I would have appreciated it regardless. I love that you've served this country already.
It was my pleasure.
For decades. That's significant enough to me. And if I was in Dalton, if I was in Calhoun, that would be enough for me to hear that there would just be no antics. It's not a fun thing to have a representative, whether it's at Congress or in the Senate or, you know, or a governor who you just don't respect and who's just, you know, walking around dragging your hometown and, you know, your alma mater through a great alma mater this woman went to, through the mud. So yeah, I think that would be enough, just to have people that we can respect and that we and that respect us.
Absolutely.
So. All right. So special thanks to our guest today, candidate Marcus Flowers. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
And who's next week's guest?
We have State Senator Kim Jackson. She was a freshman this year, and she's going to talk to us about her first year under the Gold Dome.
Did y'all hear the excitement in her voice? Like that's why I let you do the excitement in her voice. Which, like I said, I actually found out she's over my district, Stone Mountain, which I did not know. So I'm very excited to have her come in and talk about her plans for Stone Mountain because we need some. But we will see you guys next Friday, same time, same place, on the Leadership and Live podcast with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.